It is time. It is game week, and we are making depth chart projections.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer this Major League Baseball season.
All right, welcome. It is Thursday here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I'm Connor Happer alongside Mitch Sherman. We have plenty to come on today's episode. It's basically game week. I mean, you went ahead and just called it game week, but
that's what Matt Rule said on Saturday. Last Saturday, he said they would start game week a couple of days early, and this is it. It's Thursday. That's the date that he identified.
That's good. You know,
because it's Ohio. Yeah,
you got to really get everything locked away on them. Everything's new, and you start that process again next week, and then you do it again for 12 straight weeks, basically. So, I think the thinking there is it's your first time going through a script, your first time mocking up a game plan, installing that kind of stuff. So if you can take a couple extra days with your players, and especially with your players and this new staff, then you probably should. Yeah. So you want to know who's going to be out there. For the most part, if you're listening to this podcast every day, you already know. But we're gonna put our depth chart, and maybe Mitch is gonna kind of lay some names out there, and we'll see if there's any disagreements on.
I want you to disagree with me on some of these.
Well, we'll see, because I think there's a lot of them that are pretty well figured out by this point. But maybe we'll have a couple of them that come up. But play along at home if you want to. Our depth chart projections. Go ahead, Mitch. Tell us.
Yes, a little note to begin with. There are some positions on here where I had to guess the wide receivers, for instance, like who was backing up who, or at cornerback, how they're going to structure the sides of the field. I know there is a difference schematically and skill-wise, but these are not answers that we've gotten from the coaches to this point. They're not telling us Danny Odom's going to be a boundary corner versus a field corner. Like, we have not been able to have that. That's not something that they're willing to give up before the first game. So in some of these spots, we just have players slotted where we think they might be
corner one and corner two, basically. And then
you can do that, but obviously and we did, but Andrew Marshall might be a better match with a different backup than we have him positioned with. So I'm sorry if there is some knowledge out there about which wide receiver is backing up which starter, and we are off by a player or two. But that wasn't the number one consideration for me in putting this together. It was more just the names and getting them out there as far as who's on the 2 deep. So I just wanted that disclaimer before we get into it.
Let's do it then.
Quarterback, Anthony Calandria, number 1, TJ Lateef, number 2.
Yep. No wars, no anything like that. That's how it's going to be.
I think Danny Kaelin has held his own in camp this year, but I think that extra year of experience for Lateef is last year. Kaelin also has a year of experience in the Nebraska program, but last year under Dana Holgorsen for TJ Lateef and starting 4 games, I think puts him over the top as well. Actually, having a good August is what puts him over the top. Running back, Mekhi Nelson, Isaiah Mosey, Jamal Rule.
You think it'll be 1, 2, 3?
I'm not going to get too caught up in whether there will be an or.
Okay. Well, if we're not doing ors, then I completely agree. Yes, those will be the 3. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw an or on any of them. Or I wouldn't be surprised if you saw like Nelson 1 and then Mosey 2 or Rule at 2 as well. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they I really wouldn't be surprised if they laid it out anyway. But in in order, that's the three that are going to be the top three.
Yeah, this is as we talked about on the podcast Wednesday. This is about as unsure, not with the names and who they are, but the order that they might be listed and might play, as I am about any position on this entire thing. It could truly be any of those three in any order, and I wouldn't be shocked.
Yep.
Okay, this is just a wide receiver position. So I'm not calling this the X or the Y because I'm not exactly sure. With a new quarterback and some newness in the scheme on offense, not as much on defense, it's hard to say just based on last year where they're going to go with the different wide receivers. So we're just going wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver.
Okay.
This 11 personnel, 1 tight end, 1 running back, 3 wide receivers, as you normally see on a depth chart.
Okay.
All right. And Isaiah Hunter, backed up by Quinn Clark at one spot. Quasi Gilmer, backed up by Cortez Mills at another spot. And Ja'Cory Barney, backed up, not really backed up, but this is where you're going to put Janiron Bonner on the depth chart. He can play a number of positions, but they're going to stick him here as the backup. And I will say that's the slot receiver position.
Yeah, he's kind of got his own thing. And like we've talked about before on this podcast, I don't think they're going to list him as a tight end.
No.
Bonner. So I think, that's probably the most appropriate place to put him in the sort of Barney role. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Keelan Smith instead of Cortez Mills.
Okay.
That would be my only thing. But I don't know that I disagree with you in sort of how it goes. So we all agree Hunter Gilmer and Ja'Cory Barney are your three. And then the next two after that or the next one after that is Quinn Clark, and then it's probably Cortez Mills and Keelan Smith in whatever order after that.
This is the only or I have on the whole depth chart. Sometimes at the start of a year, you'll see a lot of ors. Most years, and I think this is what it's been under Matt Rule, they try to keep it clean at the beginning of the year and have very few ors. This is where I have one. The only one on the whole thing. I didn't put an or at running back. I just listed 3 of them. Tight end, Luke Lindenmeyer, number 1, Carter Nelson, or Eric Ingerson, number 2.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll do it that way, but there's no doubt that Ingerson has made a real big push here in fall camp, and a couple of those tight ends I think from down the line have made a pretty big push here as well. I want to go back to wide receiver for one second.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if you also saw Hunter Gilmer and Quinn Clark all being on the field at the same time and not Barney. On the depth chart, or just they do that on a set? More in game than depth chart.
Yeah.
I think the depth chart will say what we said, but I do think there's going to be a lot of situations where it's less Barney and more Clark, just to get 2 big bodies on the edge, and then Gilmer in his sort of natural slot, getting upfield and working.
And he's what, 6'2"? Is Quasi 6'2"?
Yeah, he's smaller. He's slighter though,
That's the way. That's a great way to stress a secondary, is to put the 3 of them, is to trade out Quinn Clark for a smaller Ja'Cory Barney. All right, totally different kind of problem that he poses for the defense. Okay, I like that. Any other thoughts on the tight ends, or should we move on to the offensive line?
Well, I think Luke Sorensen has pushed. I think Hector Knock is there, and he's probably pushed a little bit too, and Ingerson as well. I don't. It's hard for me to tell who the third one is, even though Carter Nelson does, he's kind of different than all of them. So I think there's going to be plenty of room to get those guys some work early in the season. I think if I had to name a third today, it would be Sorensen. But we'll
ahead of Ingerson.
Yeah, we'll see what that looks like. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think he may get there, but start of the season, we have two true freshmen on this thing. So Rule is listed 3 on our little mock here.
Yeah.
All right. Left tackle Elijah Pritchett and Tyler Kanak.
Yep.
Left guard Paul Mubenga and Gibson Pyle. Now I don't know if they're going to play Pyle on the left or the right side. Okay, so don't come at me in the comments on that one. Actually, you can. If you have a thought, go ahead. Center, Justin Evans and Sam Sledge.
Yeah.
Right guard, Brendan Black and Preston Taumua. And then right tackle, Gunnar Gatula and Tree Babalade.
Yeah. I think that's right. Now, they probably want to get as many guys on there as you can too. So in reality, like Babalade is probably the backup at a couple of different spots, or and Gatula is obviously the backup at a couple of different spots as well, while he's the starter at right tackle. But I do think that's your five: Pritchett, Mubenga, Evans, Black, and Gatula from left to right, and Babalade is the first guy off the bench.
15 players who started their careers at Nebraska, and 9 who came via the transfer portal. That's a pretty healthy mix if you're looking at your top 24 on offense.
Yep. Should we break and do defense?
Let's do that. Take a break. We'll be back to talk about the black shirts after this. All right, support for today's episode comes from Indeed sponsored jobs. When workplace chaos hits and you need the right hire, Indeed sponsored jobs helps connect employers like you with candidates who match specific needs, skills, certifications, and location. So less time gets spent searching and more time gets spent finding the right fit. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. We've been telling you about this for a long time, but in the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed. Maybe you were hiring a coaching staff and you were Matt Rule and you had 6 new assistants to hire and 2 or 3 more to promote. What you needed to do in the offseason was spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who checked your boxes. Now, I don't think that Matt Rule used Indeed, although he might have. But if you are a CEO type, if you are the owner of a company and you are in a position like him, what you want is what Indeed will give you: less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs, and listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go there, Indeed.com/podcast right now, and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Depth chart projections on this Thursday of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you. We start with a defensive end spot. Nebraska, the 4-2-5 scheme under Rob Orich. So we're back to 2 defensive ends and 2 defensive tackles. Over there on one edge, Cam Lenhart and Cade Petschak.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
All right. Defensive tackle. We'll just knock out both of these positions at the same time. Jasir Whittington and Tyson Terry at one spot. Riley Van Poppel and Owen Stoudemire at the other.
Yeah, I think that's right. Terry will be the interesting one. I do think it's Whittington over Stoudemire. And then I think the fascinating thing about obviously all those guys is they can kind of shift depending on what you're doing. I think there's a lot of that stuff in there. But if you're naming 2 D tackles, it's Whittington and Van Poppel for me.
Yeah, and it could be where Terry's backing up Van Poppel and Stoudemire's backing up Whittington. Just haven't been able to tell from the moments of practice that we've glimpsed. The other defensive end spot, this could warrant some discussion. I have Anthony Jones and then Williams Winery.
Really? Like 1 and 2, A and B.
Yeah. This is like what we talked about with Quinn Clark and Ja'Cory Barney, although we don't have them listed at the same position. It's kind of one of those things where I think Anthony Jones right now is an every down defensive end. And I think Williams Winery is absolutely somebody that you want on the field on third down passing situations. So how they list them may be different than how they play them. You may have both of those. You may have both of them on the field at the same time. Maybe you take Lenhart off the field. Maybe you go with Winery and Petschak on third down, or Winery and Lenhart. So
it's really 2 positions that it's one position, 2 spots that require many different things depending on the down and the distance and the situation and all these different sort of factors that go into a game. And you can flip people in and out. I guess I still think if you were to list them, you would say Winery. But I'm not convinced on that. I think you might end up being right on this, but there's no doubt that Jones has really jumped in and provided a nice little spark along that at that position. And I think Lenhart is steady at the other one.
And this is a spot too where I don't know at what point in a game you're going to see them bring Mac Markway or Willis McGahee onto the field, but more so than just about anywhere else, wide receiver can get into this conversation. But there's talent there that I think is worth looking at in some moments in games with the threes at defensive.
Yeah, I think so. If I'm to guess, then so we have at edge or defensive end, we have Lenhart, Winery, Jones, everybody, and Petchak. Everybody agrees that I think that's the top four. The next two for me are Jordan Ochoa and Mac Markway.
Okay, so Willis McGahee is not even in the top six, and I think he might be right because I've heard Jordan Ochoa's name come up more when the coaches are talking than I have McGahee. I just kind of expected that McGahee.
The real one. I mean, watch out. Like
Jordan Ochoa, watch out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. We will we'll mark that down. Let me get my little notebook here.
Yeah. Put it on the watch out list.
Yeah. Will linebacker, Owen Chambliss and Dawson Merritt. Mike linebacker, Dexter Foster and Vincent Shavers.
Yeah, and then I think you really, it's really a 3 for 2 type of situation. Haven't heard much about Dawson Merritt this fall outside of him, getting bigger and falling along the lines of the rest of the team. But I really haven't heard anything to believe that he would crack that top 3 at this moment. And so that's what you're looking at. Maybe they do an Aura situation with Dexter Foster and Vincent Shavers, or Owen Chambliss and Vincent Shavers, or something like that. But really, that's going to be 3 guys for 2 positions.
Definitely thought about the Aura there for Mike linebacker with Foster and Shavers. But I just really liked the shape that Dexter Foster appears to be in now. How he's playing every down in practice, that's for Rob Dvorak to know. I'll give you one to watch from way off the radar. Maybe he's not way off the radar.
I'll get on my watch out list again.
Yes, Derek Wacker at this position.
Wow, I'm watching out for Derek Wacker,
and he's going to be all over special teams, I believe.
Okay, now this is going to be fun because I have no idea. I mean, there's a lot of names for a lot of spots, and I can't wait to see what you do.
Well, I have a position missing here, so yes, I'm going to quickly put that in there. Yeah. All right, cornerback. We'll do the 2 corner spots first, and
just do the 2 starters, and then okay, and then
all right, we'll do that.
Backwards. Yeah,
I have my 2 starters right now as Andrew Marshall and Victor Evans.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we've landed. Yes.
You don't talk about a guy running a 4.3 140 if you don't think he's going to be the starter. Because as a coach, I think if you're talking about that and promoting that he runs a 4.3 140 and then he doesn't play, like, what are you doing wrong as a coach to not have that guy on the field?
It's really
Victor Evans.
One of the fascinating stories I think of camp that we've learned about, like how they came across him and how they landed on him, and how it's kind of Vincent Shavers' deal. And I think he's gonna, if he doesn't start, I'd be surprised if he didn't start, but at the very least he's in for a lot of snaps on defense.
And then who I listed as the backups here are Danny Odom on the Andrew Marshall side and Jamal Charles on the Victor Evans side.
I think that's right. I guess I wouldn't be surprised. I do think Charles is the next one, and I guess I'm thinking about an Aura situation with Odom, but I guess I don't know who with. So I guess
Amari Sanders maybe, but just haven't heard a lot about him this fall.
Yeah, I don't know who's really popped a whole lot at that spot. So until further notice, I do think that's your top 4 specifically at corner, and then of course you have nickel corner, which we're going to talk about now.
Donovan Jones and Rex Guthrie, and that's a little bit of a shot in the dark on Guthrie because I don't really know who else has been playing nickel besides. I think Jameer Khan can play nickel, but I got him slotted in as a starting safety. Now, if it's more in the mold of a corner and you're asking this nickel to be like a corner, then I don't think it's Rex Guthrie, because I don't think that his skill set is
those are not the same. Those are not the same skill sets with those two guys that you mentioned. I agree. Obviously, it's going to be Jones at nickel. I don't think Guthrie would.
You want to put Mario Buford there? I mean, he's a guy that crossed my plate. I went with Guthrie because I feel like he was trending in a direction last year, and I know he had some moments where it didn't look great, but
I think you're right in the sense that he's going to be on the field. I don't know if it'll be doing. It certainly won't be doing the things that Donovan Jones does, but like
Donovan Jones can do just about everything. But yeah, you want his skills. He has cornerback like skills as in somebody who can play like a safety. So he's a hugely important piece. So
yeah. I don't think he. Yeah, I just think they're a lot different. But yes, he
could be off the mark.
He
could be off the marks with Rex Guthrie and maybe Mario Buford is somebody that we want to look at. But again, that's not a name that's come up. And we talked about Amari Sanders and Dawson Merritt and some of these players who are about the same age in the program. It's been quiet on them, and it might just be because they're just kind of holding back some information. So we'll see. I don't know if Nebraska's even going to release a depth chart on Monday. I would expect that they will. I think they will, but
they will, right?
Hey, this has been a quiet offseason. Like we'll see. All right,
Monday,
safety.
Be like, here you go. Here it is.
Here's the depth chart. Safety: Jameer Khan and Justin Rhett at one, Dwayne McDougal and Caleb Benning at the other.
Yeah, I think the McDougal McDougal was the assumed starter at one of the safety spots from kind of day one when he walked on campus. And I don't know that it's been exactly that easy here in camp for him. And so I do think there's a pretty giant mix of all that. So whether they do him as the starter and Caleb Benning as his backup or there, I really wouldn't be surprised by much of the order. Haven't heard much about Rhett, I suppose. I think that's where you would slot Guthrie kind of behind at another safety position. And then, is there one more guy that could give you snaps back there outside of the four that we just mentioned? You hope so, but
they did sign Jason Shiggs last year out of the portal, but not a name that has been creating buzz. Maybe he'll be somebody that emerges. Rhett emerged late in the year last year. Didn't hear the Georgia transfer. Didn't hear a lot about him, and then he started in the bowl game in part because of just some necessity. But all right, that about wraps it up. The kicker is Kyle Cunanan and John Hole, and the punter is Archie Wilson and Camden Cook. And Camden Cook is also a great holder, according to Matt Rule.
Nice. Punt returner, Ja'Cory Barney.
I don't have a backup holder. I'm sorry. The long snapper, it's not, his name's not in front of me.
That's Jack. That's Jack.
He goes by one name.
His name is Jack. Yes. Jack Wills.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go. Let's take a break. We got to talk about Ohio State in our preview of Nebraska's 9 Big Ten opponents. We're on week 8. We got to do this before the Friday mailbag. So we'll be back right after this.
Quickly, a word from FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a home run today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick on who you think will hit a home run in their game today. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you could make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. There's about a month of regular season action left, so get in on this action today. You should have all the information you need. You are equipped with the info. Baseball is a stat sport. You know exactly what to look into, and so that should help you out in predicting who's going to hit a home run today. Someone who's on a hot streak, somebody who's facing a garbage pitcher or something like that. You know where to look, and so why not cash in on that right now with FanDuel? I think you guys are ready. You've been armed with the info. Join all the action at FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com, To play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a home run, play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we're here to talk about a couple things, but chiefly the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yes,
as Gus Johnson would say.
I think we can. Yeah, we can kind of discard the conversation that we were going to have about Nebraska volleyball and spend like a minute on that at the end, and then incorporate them into the mailbag tomorrow after they play in an exhibition tonight.
Excellent. We will do that. So the big picture synopsis on Ohio State is this: they're really, really, really good. They return a lot of pieces. They get a talent infusion. Like, they should be awesome. Their schedule is challenging this season. In the non-con with, going to Austin in September, it's going to be 8,000 degrees down there, as you know. And the conference didn't give them any breaks either. They go to Iowa, they go to Indiana, they go to USC, they play Oregon at home, they go to Nebraska in November. Of course, they finish with Michigan at home at the end of the year. Is it enough to have an 11-1 regular season? I don't know. Some people are kind of picking them to take a step back, I think, just because of the schedule this year. What say you, Mitch?
They are ranked number 1 in the preseason in the AP poll, which is amazing that there is some analysis of, and I think it's justifiable because of the schedule and because of how much Ohio State lost on defense. The offense just might be that good that they're going to outscore everybody except maybe one opponent. Now, going to Texas in week 2 is quite the challenge. Like you said, weather could be a factor, and Indiana has a mystique about them. That game is early in the season too. It would sure be something if Ohio State, which has been to the playoff 7 times since it became a thing in 2014, it would sure be quite the interesting little scenario for Nebraska. If Nebraska is trying to muck its way through, making some noise in the month of November for the first time in several years, and here comes Ohio State, and the Buckeyes are a loss away from being eliminated from playoff contention. It could happen if things break the wrong way for Ohio State. I don't expect that that's going to be the case that they're in. And if it is, I don't necessarily expect that it's going to matter a whole lot on that game, November 21st. Ohio State's that much better and more talented than Nebraska that it shouldn't. But we look at this series, and the last time they played, it was 21-17 in 2024 at the Horseshoe. The game before that at Memorial Stadium in 2021, it was 26-17, a 9-point game. There was another fairly close game in the not so recent past. 3 of the last 5 have been close. And then, of course, there are the 63, 62, 56, 48, and 52-point offensive outputs that Ohio State has put on Nebraska since they became conference partners in 2011.
Yeah, there's just a lot going on here from a roster talent perspective. I mean, I love it when one of the top teams in the country, a national championship contender like an Ohio State, like a Georgia, like the artist formerly known as Alabama, Indiana now is in that conversation, right? Like one of those 4 or 5 teams, when they return their starting quarterback, it usually gives them a little bit of a leg up. And so that is the thing they have going for them when they go to Texas in week 2. Although, Arch Manning is obviously back for Texas, who played in sort of like a spot, sort of limited type of deal over the last 2 seasons. Been interesting with them, but the college football world does not love Julian Sayin. They
blows my mind. This blows my mind.
They are fine with Julian Sayin, but they don't.
I was on the Julian Sayin hype train last year, like in the middle of the year, and I just couldn't feel there was any momentum around me. It was this conversation about how Ohio State is too good around him. Like he's throwing to Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, 1st-round picks, but he completed 77% of his passes. Like his first year as a starter, he threw for 3,600 yards. Like
I'd like to see them.
He's really good.
I would like to see them open it up a little bit on offense. And
Mm-hmm.
I think what you see who Ohio State really is once they get into games against somebody their own size, you know what I mean? Like somebody who's as talented as them. And when they do that, they want to really grind it and slow you down and play possession football. And that's when they go into a little bit of a shell. And that's where you see Sayin in these big moments. And they don't trust him because they really desperately don't want to bleep it up. You know, they don't want to turn the football over.
They didn't trust him against Indiana in the Big Ten championship last year, which was hard to understand because Ohio State, it was playing for a Big Ten championship, but like the big goal was beyond there. And really what they were playing for was a seed or whatever. And it didn't so much matter. They lost the game and they still were in position to make the national championship, but Miami knocked them off and ended their season. So all it pointed to is what you're saying, a lack of trust, a lack of confidence in Julian Sayin against a great defense that Indiana had. And part of it may have been that Ohio State had statistically the best defense of the college football playoff era last year with Matt Patricia in charge. It's not going to be that this year. They lost a lot and they replaced it with a lot, but it may have just been a deal last year with Sayin where he's a first-year starter and they just thought that they could win with all of the pieces they had around him and a great defense. And it turned out against Indiana and Miami, that wasn't enough. They needed to open it up.
Yeah. If I had to guess, I think it would I think it would look a little bit more of the same in 2026 as it was in 2025. I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see how they approach it. Obviously, you know, you have an advantage with the quarterback as talented as he is and for how much now experience he has. So we'll see what they do. But my guess would be they kind of go into the shell again. It might end up biting them because like we talked about, they're going to be in a lot of close games, I think, this year. Texas, Iowa, Indiana, USC, Oregon. It is theoretically possible, to your point from earlier, Mitch, it is theoretically possible for Ohio State to come into the Nebraska game on November 21st. This is a week before the Michigan game with 3 losses. I mean, they have tough road trips all over the place. They play Oregon 2 weeks prior to that. And they would be at that point on the very brink of the college football playoff. And
probably on the outside looking in. They would need, you're not going to play in the Big Ten championship at that point, and you got the Michigan game. I don't even know if it probably wouldn't be enough to beat Nebraska and beat Michigan and finish 9-3. I mean, you'd be looking at a 7-3 team at that point if that's where they're headed. I just think that the offense is too good. And I totally agree with you that historically Ryan Day, when he meets his match talent-wise or just a team across the field that is pushing his team, he tends to get conservative. And the one time he didn't do that was in the playoff in 2024 when they ran through the whole thing and won the national championship. So now that he's got a veteran QB, Sayin's been through this. He's played in the playoff. He's played in a Big Ten championship. He's played in that Texas game last year. It's possible with Jeremiah Smith, and they have Bo Jackson as a 1,000-yard returning rusher, and they know that the offense may have to carry some things this year because their defense just isn't statistically probably as good as a year ago. That if it's going to happen, and they're going to get tested early, that they're going to need to let Sayin carry things. I think that most people, if they were being honest and they were pressed to it and they weren't just falling into some norms of picking a quarterback, would say that Jeremiah Smith is the best college football player in the country heading into this season. Do you agree?
Yes. I think, what the experience that he returns, I mean, it's just, he may have been one of the best college football players in the country going into last season. So it's hard for me to say that that's not the case going into this season, where he still has to be in college, and he's kind of a man amongst boys out there. A really good athlete, but his size is unbelievable. So I mean, he's gonna do some damage out there.
It's the way that he moves with that size. There's other guys that size, not a lot who play wide receiver, but it's the way that he's able to twist his body and just the coach phrase, the ball skills that he has. Ohio State has had 2 or more wide receivers in its lineup every year who were first round picks since 2019. And this year will be no exception. The young talent coming up, which is led by Chris Henry, he emerged as the number 2 option behind Smith in the spring. He was so good that 2 former 5-star wide receivers transferred out of Columbus to Notre Dame after last season. So this will be the last game in Memorial Stadium before it goes completely offline and they tear down the south end zone structure. So maybe Kiewit can get a jump on things and begin to tear down the South Stadium in the second half of that game. If enough people head for the exits because it's cold and the score is lopsided.
That's sad. I think we'll be saluting South Stadium deep into the night, and it'll be a competitive game.
Raise one up for the South Stadium. Yeah.
Goodbye, South Stadium. I'll never see you again.
Okay. That's it for today. Watch the Spikes Under the Lights tonight on TNT, Nebraska, 7 p.m. against Florida. I think this thing is going to be kind of a mess logistically and from an organizational standpoint, but it might look okay on your TV. So we'll talk about it.
It's best 2 out of 3, and like they're going to do it all in like 3 hours. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
There's one schedule of events that has a concert starting 30 minutes after the championship begins. So I don't know how that is going to happen, or maybe they could just have the concert while Nebraska and Penn State are playing, if that's who turns out to make the final. There's $1 million at stake in this thing. 400,000 goes to the winning team. So it's an exhibition, not going to count on Nebraska's record or NCAA tournament resume, but they want that money. So watch that tonight. We'll have a mailbag tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about what's on tap for Nebraska volleyball going to Vegas on the weekend and playing Texas on Sunday in the mailbag. Ask us a volleyball question. That is all that we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in and following us. Be sure to join us tomorrow for that mailbag. Make sure you subscribe and follow. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make your second listen Locked On College Football. Thank you for listening and watching today.